Today I'm turning a plain and boring brown paper bag into the cutest ever Christmas junk journal. If you're looking for a budget-friendly DIY to gift this Christmas, this video is for you. It is day 12 of my 12 Days of Christmas Stash Busting Challenge, where I've been creating as many Christmassy projects as possible. So far, I have made 36 separate pieces, from gift tags to interactive mini albums, Christmas cards, scrapbook layouts, and more. But will it be enough? Will my reduced stash fit into this box? This project is the one that will use up the most of my supplies, and I love that it is a perfect last-minute Christmas gift. Christmas is coming, so we better get started. For the paper bag journal I'm creating today, I am starting with this paper bag. It is from Woolworths, one of our main grocery stores here in Australia. This idea will work with any brown paper bag that you have, and the first thing that you'll want to do is undo all of the folds and flaps. You'll want to get it as flat as possible, and that also means pulling out these side sections. This one has a gusset almost on the side. You want to pull that out so that you only have a front and a back, and the bag is then very, very flat. Next, chop off the handles. We won't be needing those. I'm also going to chop away that section of the bag that has all the glue on it. This is the bit that's on the bottom of the bag, and no matter how careful you are with pulling it apart, that section always ends up a little bit ratty. To make sure the bag is super flat, you can score the edges with a bone folder, because we now need to do a little bit of measuring. I'm going to chop off around 3 inches from the top of the bag. That's the section that has the reinforcing stuck inside for the handles. We won't be needing any of that. I really just want to be left with 2 very plain paper bag sides. My journal ends up being 9.5 inches high. This is a wraparound journal, so we do need to make 2 score lines. The first one is 6 inches in from the right hand edge. The second one is 6.25 inches in from the left hand edge. Once you've made those 2 score lines, it's ready to fold up the journal. You'll want to turn the left side in first, and then the right side goes in on top of that. It's at this point that I can make any adjustments to the size of the album that I like, and whilst it is a little bit tricky to cut through all of the paper layers at this point, I find that the finish is so much better if you can trim it now. Any of the imperfections in your folding of the bag get covered up by that nice clean cut. You will want to add a little bit of tape to the inside of the bag just to keep the front and back sections stuck together. It's now time to gesso everything. Unfortunately, the logo for Woolworths is this bright green W that you see there. We do not want to see any of that in our finished project, and even though I am going to add some paper on top of this, I don't know what parts of the bag are going to show through and what parts are not. So it is my suggestion that you just add gesso to everything at this point. If you're starting with a bag that is solely brown paper, or a pretty one that you don't mind seeing parts of, you can skip this step altogether. Once that's all dry, we can now start on the decorating part. That is essentially the base done. I'm working with 12 by 12 inch pattern papers for this, and because the album is longer than 12 inches, I can't use one sheet to do the entire back or the entire front. That's actually good though, because I can add interest to the album by working in sections. You have a few options here. For this particular album, I used a single sheet of 12-inch paper first. That's the green one there. And I wrapped it around as much as I could to the back. And then I continued on with the red pattern paper and just used that to fill up the back of the album. For the other journal I made, I actually used 2 pieces that were around 10 inches long and just overlapped them at the back. Just use what you have and try and choose papers that are contrasting in colour. Did you spot my ugly paper? Yes, there it is right there, the black and red plaid. Every single project that I've created as part of the challenge has included at least one. I hope you've all been playing along too and using up your stash. For the inside of the journal, I do want to make some pockets. For the back section, I will add a pocket that goes top down, and then the green strip of paper that you see on the left there, that's a pocket for the inside cover. You could certainly add one to the back cover as well. I just chose not to. With all the pockets in place, I was then able to run the entire album through my sewing machine. I've stitched around all of the edges and added some extra stitching to reinforce those pockets. Next, I'm going to work on the inserts, and that's going to use up a heap of my ugly pattern papers. I'm going to work with the full length of the 12 by 12 inch papers, so just fold those in half, and then you'll need to trim them to the height of the journal. If your journal is 9 inches tall, trim these to 8.5 inches. I thought this would be a lovely time to also include some of my junk journal papers. So these are book pages, there was some doilies, a few bits and pieces, not too much though. My real focus was getting these pattern papers used up, so I have only sprinkled those elements in here. For this album, I used 5 pattern papers in total. I'm going to add the signature in here on the left. There's a very good reason for it not to go on the right, and that's because the front cover on the right is actually not wide enough to hide it. And here's the easiest way that I've found to add signatures into an album. The first thing you're going to do is grab yourself a piece of scratch paper and you're going to cut it to the same height as your signatures. You're going to fold it in half and mark the center, and then place 2 more marks, one halfway between the middle and the top and the other one halfway between the middle and the bottom. If you're not sure where the middle mark is, you can also just add maybe 2.5 inches above that center line and then go 2.5 inches below the center line. Sometimes I find that's a little bit easier. Now, to poke the holes in the signature, I'm going to use a book to help hold everything in place, and this tool here, which is called an awl, A-W-L. I have tried to do this without one of these tools and it is very, very difficult. They're really inexpensive. I'll leave a link below, and it's a game changer. So if you're keen on making these, I would highly recommend you getting one. Using the template as a guide, you can add in the holes in the spots that you marked there for the signature. Then take the signature and place it into the junk journal, just like I have here, and then pop the junk journal back into your book and rest it there. The book really helps everything stay together. I'm then popping the awl through the signature, through those holes I've already made, and adding the extra hole for the journal cover. For me, I found that works better when I do it as 2 separate steps. So rather than placing the signature into the mini album or the junk journal and then trying to push that all the way through, I think it's easier to do the signature separately, then position the signature and then push the awl through just the journal part. So now we have all of the holes in place. We can then stitch this signature into the cover. The important part is to go down the center hole first. So start in the center of the album and push your needle down towards the outside of the album. Start there first, and then you can choose another hole and go up through the top hole, then back down through the center, and then back up through the bottom hole. So it's like a big number 8, and I do actually repeat that a few times. I do want this to be nice and secure. It is really the only thing that's holding this entire book section of the junk journal to the cover. With that done, you can tie everything off here, and I actually don't mind leaving these threads a little bit long. I don't cut them super short. I don't mind the look of that. I feel like it adds to that handmade feeling of the journal. You can see here how everything flips open. So you open that front cover and then the other side, and then you've got the book section, I guess you could call it, there on the left, and then your pocket at the back. Oh yes, the trees that are upside down, that's because I'm using double-sided paper. So you are going to have that problem if you use a print that goes a certain way. But I kind of feel like that doesn't matter so much because the recipient of this junk journal is going to layer things on top of that anyway. With the construction of the journal now fully completed, it is time to add a few decorations. I am going to keep things pretty simple though. I'm going to layer up a few embellishments for the front cover here, and I do want to add a ribbon. It may sit nice and flat now, but as the journal fills up, it will open up and it will be really nice to have that ribbon to be able to secure it closed. There is nothing quite like a chunky junk journal. Here's a look at the completed finished journal ready to gift. Okay, so I guess there is just one burning question that remains to be answered. Did I use up enough of my stash so that my remaining supplies will fit inside this box? It's time to find out.